Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Higher Density Living. You are here with your hosts, Jason Rigby, and myself, Alexander McKegg. You know, we just had an interesting business meeting.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when the ego steps in.
Well, with everybody, I mean, that's just part of it.
But what happens, though? It becomes highly material, and it becomes short-sighted, and real human values, real values of creation are just missed.
But what happens when two people or one of the people get offended? You know, then that offense, where does that offense come from?
It's an internal offense that they have.
It's not real.
No.
The offense is coming from the mind.
And did you hear me challenge the ego? And, I'm not trying to do, I'm not. Yeah, it's like, no, it's exactly what you're doing.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's the mind coming up with this belief of separateness that's turning around saying, my beliefs, which we all know what beliefs are, bunch of dog shit. My beliefs that I've got grounded from my parents, they've proven this. Like in science, they've proven like finding people's beliefs. Most of your beliefs are from your grandparents, your parents, the way you were raised, where you were raised, the culture you were in. You know, I mean, there's a reason why people will die for a flag.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason about that. That's a belief system that they have. So now you, separate Alexander, has gone against my belief system. So I need to take offense to that.
I'm a victim.
Yeah.
You don't think like me. You challenge the way I think. You challenge the basis, the ground of my life. And I can no longer be humble about my beliefs.
No.
I must now be an attacker. I must tell you that I am superior in my thought.
Yeah, ego pride.
Ego pride. Okay. So anyway, that's we just talked about how our meeting just went separately. You know, humble. When I've always disliked the word.
Right. Yeah. Because of its modern.
Because of its modern meaning. It's like.
That's why I went to the ancients. Yeah,
you always do. You got to go back to the roots.
The roots.
Humble really defines people to say, like, think of the church aptly defined this. So with the onset of religion, right, after post-translations of Latin to become church Latin, the word humble was to tell people that you should be meek, weak.
Yes.
Think little of
weak.
yourself
That's a really
to
good.
higher, superior things. You are of little to no value. Okay, so think of yourself as that littleness.
And you need to submit to the empire.
Right, and you have to submit. So you are already of a lower energy mentally because we want you to be humble and show humility towards your God. But from that, don't try and work on all these other things or, become humble or challenge those who are teaching you. Because what does that do? That's the opposite of what God wants. God wants you to be humble.
Yes, yeah.
And so I've never really liked the word because humans, in our nature, are not weak. At our core, we are born to fight. We are born to strive. We are born to survive and evolve. And meekness, right, in the definition of what the church changed it into in the 14th century, fucked this idea of humble.
Right.
And we need to unfuck humble.
Yes, unfuck humble. Yeah, I like that.
All right, good. So can we do that real quick?
Yeah, we'll do that. I want to make a quote I heard from Aubrey Marcus this week that was really good. He said, the empire, what do you call it, the 1% or whatever, we can have conspiracy theories on that, but the empire likes war, but doesn't like the warrior.
Of course.
So when you really think about that, humility in a false sense it wants you to be a sheep. It wants you to give in. It wants you to believe in the narrative. It wants total control, censorship. It wants all of these things. I mean, Canada did you hear about this podcasting rule they just came out with?
Yeah, I did.
Where they want to censor podcasts?
And they were like banning everything, even on fucking, what do you call it? X?
Yeah.
All of it, all together. Oh, we just got a delivery, folks.
Oh,
the sandwich
sandwiches.
just came in. Thank you very much. Yeah. Oh, you didn't bring one for him? Oh my gosh. Thank you. But That's what it is that you find that these groups do not want opposition in any way, shape, or form. So if you can cripple crowds mentally, cripple the warrior, weaken him in his mind. How many movies have you seen this?
Oh yeah, this is the hero's journey.
Break the mind, you know what I mean? Like that's their whole goal, but keep you broken.
Now there's humility in the hero's journey with what makes the warrior is the humiliation of the ego.
Yeah.
Which has to happen. We'll get into Bhagavad Gita, goes into specifically about.
I've never read it.
Yeah, you've read it. So C.S. Lewis starts with a quote, which is however people believe about him, but this is really cool. C.S. Lewis says, "Humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less." Pretty simple quote.
When you think of yourself all the time, what does it do? It generates noise. And do you know what loves noise? Your ego.
Yes. Yeah.
It loves the chatter. It loves the constant bullshit affirmations and beliefs that can be fed to itself all the time. So if you can think about this in this nature, if you remove this gravitational well of bullshit thoughts, what are you left with? You're left with a clear mind that can focus on things of real value. You have humility in the sense you can view and understand your respective place in this world and in this creation.
Yes. So let me ask you this, because this is something that you're sharing with earlier. How do you remove all the bullshit so that you can focus, so that you don't get caught up in the bullshit that's all around you and start believing in that and getting emotional about that?
Yeah.
The trash in the trash cans all around you is emotional because it's sitting there. And it's like, how do I focus on, what I need to do for myself? Because Ra talks about this over and over again. I was just reading this. This is in your contact report 215. The earth must change towards the good and positive through his own reason and grasp of responsibility, and thereby rehabilitate himself.
Okay.
So how do we go into rehabilitation?
This is really interesting. I've had an enormous amount of pressure and stress on me recently. So everybody gets it. Okay.
Yeah, you're an entrepreneur. Negative.
Right.
Like a negative catalyst.
Right. I have some tough family matters I'm dealing with, like all that good stuff. So when these things compound, it's usually not those things that set me off. Okay. So I drive a truck and it's painted black. So if it's not cleaned properly, it looks like shit. Yesterday, I'm having a great day, managing my pressures and stresses, appropriately, aptly. And then as I'm cleaning the truck, everything starts to go to hell in a handbasket. The more time I'm putting into cleaning it, the worse and more dirty it's looking. The water's hard. My tools are breaking. My buckets are cracked. The chemical solvents for cleaning certain things weren't working properly. And I fucking snapped. I lost it. I did. And for me.
But it wasn't the cleaning products. It wasn't the truck.
Had nothing to do with that shit.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with it. It was everything else, but this was like this little outlet.
Yeah,
right?
to blame the truck is.
Right. And the problem was I became more frustrated because I was blaming myself and I knew I was pissed. I knew it. And I control these things so well. But what did I have to do? In that situation, the stresses have not changed. My life circumstances had not changed. But I had to, over the course of the day, legitimately rehabilitate my thoughts, my physiological state with blood pressure and everything else. I had to rehabilitate that myself. I had to take responsibility for what was going on. I had to realize that it was just bullshit that set me off.
It's also an allegory, and this is the funny part, and this is stuff I've been learning. The catalysts that are happening in our lives that we perceive as negative, a lot of times is an allegory of things like, let me give you, it's like you don't have control, so this person is like the bucket. This person's the solvent. Now the solvent says it's going to do this, and it didn't do this.
It didn't do it. You want to?
I've been finding these. I've been
Constantly.
having like tons of physical issues here lately, which I'm fine. I feel great, but shit keeps breaking on my body. Yes. And I'm like, what the fuck? But it's the same thing. It's like, oh, okay. Well, you've been so focused on the physical. Let's make a negative catalyst here. But then, what is the true problem? Well, the true problem is you have a ton of fear that you've never dealt with. So we need to bring that out, get you where you're freaking out.
Yeah.
And then kind of like, oh, what the fuck?
Well, you know how I rehabilitated myself? Like you. So you're having this self-awareness, this thought process, right?
It's
like, how do I clear
if you can stop it?
How do I clear through the bullshit? Now that I've arrested the motion of what's going on here, arrested the motion of my emotions.
Didn't kick the cat.
Yeah. What I, what I realized is that I have to be painfully patient every day of my life. And almost all of the things I do not get me immediate gratification or outcomes. Most of the outcomes I have to wait for take years. It is a slow,
people don't like deferred gratification.
And mine is only deferred.
That's why I play video games.
The only instant gratification I get is when I clean the goddamn truck.
Yeah. So you were wanting to have some order. So like whether you, like Jordan Peterson talks about, whether you arrange your sock drawer.
Yeah.
And you get them all ordered in line. That's interesting. So it's because like us grasping for control.
Yeah. Because I go out there and I know what I'm going to do now in the physical is going to have an immediate gratifying impact for me. It is a peaceful moment for me when I go out there and I get to do this. And I get to see the result of my hard fucking work.
Yes,
because
exactly. It's not dependent on anybody else but you.
It's only dependent on me. And then when things failed around me, all hell broke loose in my mind. And so I said, Alex, you are creating noise. You are creating bullshit. This is not the focus of your stress. Think about it. And I had to bury down and deal with this bullshit and become more humble about the thoughts. It was so egotistical of me to get pissed at the stuff that was around me or the truck or the, the tools themselves, when really it was a function of me. The ego's like, blame everything else. You should have seen how far I threw this bucket.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, I've done that multiple times.
Oh my goodness. But
fuck you, bucket.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what occurred. But and you asked me, like, how do I deal with the bullshit? How do I become more humble? I have to self-rehabilitate all the time. It is a constant practice of figuring out how to deal with my own internal bullshit. And then once I figure that out, you can so readily see it from other people. You can recognize their bullshit when anything's coming at you from a mile away.
Oh, a mile away, yeah.
And you saw me sharing this in the meeting. I said, all I do is like give, and everyone's take. And they're constantly pushing me. And I can see the push from a mile away. It's like, I need you to fuck off with the bullshit for a minute.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that I was listening to somebody say the other day, they're like, the more spiritually aware I become, the less I want to deal with people. So there's there's a Luciferian aspect of that.
Well, what did I say?
Yeah, today? Exactly. Yeah.
I said, it's a shame, and I'll share this with you all here, and it makes me sad. I have become very jaded towards many things in life, and life should not be lived that way. No, I don't want to be like that, but it's constant.
It's the influence. It's just that there's such a strong influence. I mean, you have 8 billion people, 9 billion people, whatever it is, with its negative, reactive mind.
It's very
it's a collective mind. And so that's a lot of pressure that's put on there. And, Ra talked about this. We're changing from third to fourth density. There's pressure with that. Like there's always pressure with change. I mean, the proverbial nature is always doing that with its transformation, the metamorphosis of the caterpillar to the butterfly.
Right.
That whole process is struggle, adaptation.
But the pressure is important.
It is
because
important. Yes.
Humility, right?
That's where it comes from.
Let's talk about this. Talk about humility. Let's think about geology. The root of the word for humility comes from the word humus.
Right. Yes.
Earth. Your ground.
Not hummus.
Not hummus, but humus, right?
Yes.
It's this wonderful stuff you can pick up and actually feel in your hands. It's the earth. It's the stuff that allows us to survive. It gives us the nutrients to our food and all this other beautiful stuff. But underneath that, there's bedrock. There is pressure. There are minerals that are being created from these pressures of life.
Yes.
And I know this. You talk about allegories, man, and analogies, I know it. And I know it in the moment, but you see this. And for humility itself, removing the bullshit, removing the chatter, pushing that ego aside, and realizing, like C.S. Lewis said, humility is not thinking less of yourself, because you shouldn't. You're a human being. Be proud to be a human being. It's a wonderful gift to have the human life, no matter how difficult or easy it may be.
Yeah, I mean, St. Augustine, a Christian mystic, said humility is the mother of all virtues. Taoism, Lao Tzu said, the more humble you are, the greater you are, which kind of seems like an oxymoron. But you see somebody that's on purpose, on mission, on fire.
Grounded.
And that's grounded, and they're just living out that purpose. It's so inspiring to us.
It is. And when we see it, we're like, wow, I want to be like that.
That story, because that's what we, campfire stories is where we're evolutionary psychology. That story, when we hear that or see that hero's journey that's been perpetrated, with Netflix and Amazon Prime and all these, when we watch that and we see that crucifix of the fire, that humiliation, and then we see them overcome it and soar like an eagle into, this, that's where we see the greatness. It's the proverbial, everybody gets a tattoo of the flame.
The phoenix?
The phoenix, yeah.
The ashes, pulling the Lazarus.
That's what this is. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, what do you find here is that if you go through history, every single one of these major figures, which you can talk about from Lao Tzu,
Jesus,
St. Augustine, Jesus, C.S. Lewis, right?
We'll get in the Bhagavad Gita, has wording for humility.
All of them bring up a constant theme around being humble. But you can't read it with the 14th century fuck up that the Roman Catholic Church put on it with their church Latin, because that's not what it is. It is to understand your proper placement, what it means to be a human being, be in this world, find your grounding. That's what it boils down to. And that's why this is talked about over and over and over. Does Socrates speak at all in this, Jason?
Yes, yeah. He said he's the father of Western philosophy.
You bet he is.
Humility is the first step towards wisdom. Jesus said, he who is humble will be exalted. One of the things that old school ancient texts teach is that there's this soul scalding fire and a spiritual crucible that you have to go to.
Tell me about this.
So, and I thought this was really interesting. So if you're looking at something that is perceived as painful, Buddhism talks about and we have all talked about this, what suffering is. Suffering is just perceived.
Life is suffering.
Yeah, exactly. Nietzsche goes into this dramatically. What's the book that? What's the farm book?
What?
Duglatsky, or what's the guy's name? The Russian dude that wrote everybody's yelling at it right now. Come on. The farm animal books. Where there's
George Orwell.
No, not George Orwell. I'll look it up here, and it's I can't pronounce his name for now. I've read the book. And each of the farm animals,
I want to say like Dodachevsky or something
like that. Yeah.
What's the guy's name? I know what you're talking about.
But but it's a philosophical book. And in each of these, you see these perceptions of separateness and what the ego perceives itself in each of these animals. And in that, you see this weakness come out, in the way that and weakness, what we perceive as weakness, comes out in many different ways. Like, we'll use the meeting we had earlier. Like there's different characters, and each of those characters, and it could be anybody in the world out of 8 billion people. Each of those characters have what we perceive as strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
But that's our limited perception of them and what they're going through in their catalyst, in their, unconscious mind. But we're putting a judgment to it. So, and this is where Buddhism goes in. Anything that's judged is considered suffering. So humility to me is this soul scalding fire in the sense that it creates this perceived pain for us to learn not to judge. And then when we don't judge, that's where, as Socrates said, that's where the wisdom and understanding, which you like that word, the wisdom and the understanding, or I'll use another word you like, is the knowingness.
Knowingness. Yeah, I mean, you saw in the meeting, did I get judged almost immediately?
Oh, yeah. Every meeting.
Do you know, at a technological level?
I mean, you're young. So,
yeah.
I mean, you have long hair. I mean, these are things that older people look at. Like,
right.
Like nowadays, my parents were raised fundamentalist. And so a man with long hair was feminine.
It's awesome.
And judged, you had to have like a short military hair.
Oh, yeah. I get it all the time. It's like, what do you...
Or me with tattoos.
You're judging me on knowing of the technology? I wrote the patent for the technology.
But humiliation is often portrayed not merely as an external infliction, but to me, it's the catalyst, and we'll use the raw word, for introspection and spiritual, and I'm going to use another good word here, fortification. So it's that trying of the soul.
Yeah.
And then in the soul, that trying begins to build something that is, allows our spiritual evolution.
Yeah.
There has to be a building up of.
So when you become humble, you get to the ground. When you are on the ground, you can lay a proper foundation.
Yes.
And with the right foundation, you can have the strongest fortifications.
Mm-hmm.
Words are interesting throughout our history because there are truly foundational words. In the earliest parts of our language, you find that when people described things, described the world, they described it through their objective knowingness of the world.
Yes.
And then as more and more people experienced the world less, learned about it more in books, were told more from priests, new words, new definitions were invented because people weren't actually objectively experiencing it. And these things which were secondary, tertiary, 4 levels deep of experience, you're so far removed that our languages have changed and our perceptions have changed and the foundations, the fundamentals were gone. The fortification of how we see this world were eradicated. They were weak.
Yeah, it was literally doubling down on service to self.
That's all it did.
So, and then they created a theology off of service to self.
Yeah, correct.
Wrote books about service to self. Where humility is the opposite of that. It is this self-realization towards enlightened compassion. And because at the end of the day, sixth density beings is love,
That's what it is.
I mean, the purity is love. So if I'm having to go through trials and tribulations to learn love, I mean, that's what makes an amazing relationship. You see like a great relationship, with your partner, it's going through the bullshit together and learning together.
She did just bring me a sandwich.
Yeah, your wife just brought you a sandwich.
Yeah. No, but you're right. It's when you go through that stuff and you can't, listen, you can do whatever you want. This is just a recommendation. But you can't view these things in life as harming you. Life is a gift every single time.
Yes.
The energy that allows your body and mind to animate itself is a gift. Cosmic electromagnetic energy does not need to exist, but it does.
Yes.
It is a gift that allows you to be here. Every single experience, every action you take, every repercussion, every counteraction that comes back to you is a gift, no matter how painful. And I had to, again, through self-rehabilitation and humbling myself in that moment for my emotions, realize that I'm pissed, but this is a gift, no matter how challenging, no matter how painful, no matter the people you work with, the egos, everything, the catalysts of life, they were all gifts.
All gifts. And that's where humiliation comes in, because I like the alchemical part of this. And I can't pronounce this. Maybe you can.
What?
I'm not big on Latin or whatever, but
Salve coagula?
Yeah. So alchemy. I've been studying spiritual alchemy a lot.
Yeah.
It's a dissolution and coagulation of the self. The alchemist, through embracing humility, you have this dissolution or this dissolving of the ego and enabling a coagulation of the self through pursuit, if that makes sense. So you began to get a clarity of the higher self, which is the true you, through this. These things begin to dissolve away. The ego begins to dissolve away. So now the lead to gold begins to happen. But that process has to go through you attempting egoic pursuits, if that makes sense. I mean, there has to be action.
So I'm just trying to think of like a personal example. When I was in college, okay, my whole idea is, what do I do that makes me the most amount of money? How do I get a maximum amount of capital in my life so I can have the maximum amount of personal power?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are that way. Yeah,
they do, right?
Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah, so this is my thing, right? You have all these influences. You're in metropolitan areas. You feel it all the time. Heavy ego, heavy identity driven, especially.
Alpha male, yeah.
Yeah, and like how much money you got.
The cell phone.
And to me, it was the big one. You know what I mean?
That was back in the day, my time.
Yeah. The thought for me was that if I had more capital resources, okay, I do not have to succumb to the pressures of other things in life I do not want to deal with.
Yes.
But an interesting thing happened here over time. My mindset continued to change, and I was in the pursuit of these things that generate me a lot of wealth, okay? But the mindset started to change where it lacked value. And I had so much of my identity wrapped up into like these monetary achievements, right? And how much can I disassociate from like the norms of like society and its routines and come up with my own. Like that was the whole idea, was like, how can I externally be so different? Right. Which is a total ego projection.
Yes.
And then over time, I realized that the more work I done, the more risk I put in, the more challenge I got. And the closer, and as you accumulate more wealth, those things actually become less valued. Or at least they did to me.
Mm-hmm.
They become less valuable over time. I don't want to shop. I don't want to own the nice things. I want simplicity. I want to understand the basic necessities of life and work with those. I want to find those principal values. I want to translate those things internally. I want to become more humble with how I actually move through this life, more grounded.
Do you feel like as you begin, because the older you get, if you're self-aware, the older you get, the more wisdom you get, and then there's like
some would hope.
Yeah. Some would hope. I mean, you can see it's
in
like
general,
double down, some people double down on their ego as they get older. But if you have somebody that's gone through a lot of trials and tribulations and they have this reverence of humility and you can kind of see it and feel it.
Wow.
When you're having you can feel their energy, you can kind of know deep down in heart, they have love, they have a heart. How do you feel like that? I mean, I'm genuinely asking the question. Do you feel like that is a path that is hard, or do you feel like that is a path that you want to take? Like we all hope to be a good person, but then our actions a lot of times show that we're not. Like like most spiritual people are bullshitting. It's like the guru that sleeps with everybody.
Yeah.
Which I get it. That would be fun. You want to have sex with everybody and then you can put like this spiritual twist on it and everybody wants you. Like the guy in Texas where he was gay and he was getting like straight males to get their wives and him, or bisexual, whatever he was.
Yeah.
But he was having these straight males, have sex with them. And he was like doing it through this spiritual manipulation. It's like
it's easier.
Do you see what I'm saying? Like
dissolving your bullshit, right?
There we go.
Solve coagula, right? Dissolving those things, right?
Yes.
Distilling it down into its basal parts.
It can't be fun.
It is not a fun process.
Yeah.
It is not an easy process. You know what's easy? Going out and buying a new car. Going out and buying new clothing. Amassing material things. Bullshit affirmations in your mind. All that stuff easy.
Yes.
But to look at yourself and jump in a vat of fucking acid.
With fire.
Okay? And dissolve.
Yeah.
All of the things that aren't truly you, and then bring the core things back together in
not pleasant.
A crystallized unity is the most unpleasant process. It is a challenging process, and you have to remind yourself every moment of every day why you're doing this. And that is to evolve. It is to find that level of humble groundedness in your nature as a human being. We drag ourselves, we're pulled through society away from what it means to truly be a human being. And to dissolve all that stuff means to arrest that flow, recognize it, peel yourself away for a moment, and strip yourself bare ass fucking naked in front of you and everyone else around you.
Yeah, it was funny. Paul Chek was talking exactly what you're talking. He was talking about most people, especially in the spiritual community, have discernment wrong or intuition. Like, because we're such a comfort society, we feel like, oh, this gave me a fuzzy good feeling inside, so I need to move in this direction.
No.
Like I went to this conference, and in this this spiritual conference, and then this person said this thing, and I just felt like, you hear people, it's like, I just felt so right. I was so in the vortex. I was so this, I was so that. Everything was, and I'm not going against, spiritual teachers or whatever. I'm just saying that warm, fuzzy feeling, sometimes if I'm looking in this alchemical process, that's a lot of heat, a lot of fire. It seems like a lot of perceived pain to have all that, to have that egoic stripped away.
It's horrible.
You got to go to the ashes to have the phoenix.
All the time. Listen, there is I don't know how to describe this without sounding psychotic.
Even better.
There has to be a welcoming nature to your thought process for things that are legitimately uncomfortable. Things that are
shadow.
Things that are designed to be comfortable, to give you that warm and fuzzy feeling, are the dopamine hits or the oxytocin. It's all that love.
That's what we want.
Guess what gives you that? Sugar, new material items, money, fucking gurus at conferences. That'll give you that. But you don't actually have the other stuff in life that will challenge you. And most people, when they feel that challenge, will turn away from it.
Yes,
they will run
yes.
back to the fuzz. Okay?
So the ego is playing a role there with the fuzz.
Right. Absolutely. It's, oh, no, you don't need to feel any of this pain or something that make you uneasy. Don't push further into that. Come back to this. This works for you. You don't have to challenge your identity or any of these things.
Yeah, Steiner talks about it as being Luciferian, like in the sense of like, it's like give up the material, give up everything. You know, at some point it'd be like, the worst would be like a heroin addict.
Yeah.
Like that's totally Luciferian. It's like, let me just inject this in. I don't have to feel anything.
I'm just going to detach from reality. Well, guess what? You're stuck here in reality.
Yeah.
There's no detaching from it. But those things that are edgy and uncomfortable, push into them. I've been doing it my whole life. Sometimes it gets me hurt, but other times I learn a treasure trove, a wealth of knowledge.
Well, humility comes in through that.
I have pushed myself into situations that right the processes of my mind and my actions. And I know it's a little uncomfortable and I wouldn't necessarily do it, but what I've found is that as I do it, I'm still here. I still wake up tomorrow. I still push forward, and there's a gift that is learned through getting into those uncomfortable areas. And now the process is natural for me to push myself. I'm like, oh, that feels a little uncomfortable. Like, let me just push a little bit further. Let me see about that. What is it? You know what the limitation of damage is to your body. Well, you know when to stop. But for most things, social, political, emotional, or physical, push a little bit into it. Learn a little bit more.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, I want to kind of, we'll close in these two, but I want to get into the Bhagavad Gita and Sufism because the Bhagavad Gita has 20 tenets, like in chapter 13, verse 7, it says the number one first quality is, and I'm not going to pronounce this right, it's a Amantavam or whatever, but that's humility. Yeah, Vanavan, that's humility, and it's the first quality. And then Sufism in Arabic, Tawadu, or however Arabic is like.
That was very good.
Yeah, is venerated as a path towards divine love.
Wow,
and we all know Rumi.
You're doing better.
I know I'm doing better, yeah. It's all the stuff I've been reading here lately.
That's great.
Fucking crazy. If you want to really test your comprehension, read Rudolf Steiner. That motherfucker was in a whole different, he was writing like Raw's tough.
Yeah, Raw's tough. Yeah.
Rudolf Steiner's 10 times tougher. Every word you have to pause. Because he uses words like Raw uses words so perfectly.
Yeah.
But he throws out words I've never heard. And so I got to look the word up. And then I'm like, disconnected with this. Holy shit.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
God.
I spent 5 minutes on one sentence. So you have to like study a book. Now, you can't get in a hurry and read.
Do you know that scene?
It's fucked up.
You know that scene in with those guys that were in Vegas? What the?
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And, he's coming down the elevator to the casino floor.
Is that the babysitting in Vegas?
Yeah, it was like that, right? Yeah, you know what I mean? But you see the math flying across the face. When you're reading the books, I see like fucking things like a line.
I'm like, how do now I know why these people have to go to that Steiner place or whatever, and like forget their lives. They have like things for like 2 years. I get it. Like you'd have to spend 12-hour days.
Yeah,
it's funny. I love it. You know, these people like Jesus and these other people that have Buddha and all they come on the scene. You know, it's like a gift from our higher selves.
It's a gift.
Yeah, to have these type of people in our life. The water dude we talked about last week.
Thank you for bringing that up. Your own human life is a gift, and so is the gift of meeting others.
Yes, 100%.
No matter how disgusting you may find them or how loving you may find them.
Why do I really want to learn from Rudolf Steiner, but I don't want to learn from somebody I just had a meeting with? Because they're both learning lessons.
They're both learning lessons.
And they can give me so much, both of them.
What's the learning lesson? Why do you not want to learn from the other?
Yeah, why do I want to learn from?
That's what you need
I want to pick and choose who I want to learn from.
Why not push into that thing you don't want to learn from?
Fuck. I hate that. So in closing, Sufi mystics,
yes,
they reflected upon humility as the key to unlocking doors to the metaphysical. And they call it like a dance in divine ecstasy. And they would do those dances with the twirls, you know, with the outfits on. It's really cool.
It's like we talked about in the beginning. Reduce the chatter.
But don't you think that this could unlock the door to this metaphysical part of the higher self, being able to, it's like earlier we were talking about, you know, with you channeling these videos that you made, you know, and I believe it was, you were getting downloads, like universal downloads when you were speaking.
Well,
we were doing one take documentaries and you're nailing it. Like one take. Like we did it in one time. It's like that's a download. That's not. It's coming from your true higher self.
Mm-hmm.
That's not you speaking. That's your higher self speaking.
Now you get out of the way. There was an old, speaking of Buddha. Buddha had called in this this mystic one day. And he said, okay, all great and powerful mystic, I want you to start talking. Do not stop. He couldn't do it. He couldn't just talk. Why? Because everything he was doing was breaking up the natural flow of his existence. His thoughts, his ego, his identity were in the way. And over time, he came to realize that his consistent flow of speech no longer came from him. It came through him.
Yeah.
What a lesson.
That's so good. Yeah.
Get out of your own fucking way.
And it's also like, I was told this as a little kid, like it was kind of a joke, but it really hit me really strong here lately.
Mm-hmm.
Is the guy that got put rotten cheese underneath in his car. So he's driving and he smells this absolutely, stink. And he's like, what? So then he picks the cheese up. He finds it and he's like, these fucking teenagers, He picks the cheese up and he has a mustache and he kind of wipes it on his, after he didn't even think about it, just doing that.
Yeah.
And then he goes on his day and he's like, and this is a metaphor, but he's like, the world stinks.
Yeah.
I go to my work, it stinks. I get in my car, it stinks. I go home, it stinks.
Mm-hmm.
Without even realizing, that it's on his mustache.
Yeah, and he put it there.
Yeah, and he put it there. And it's like kind of the same thing with humility.
It's the same damn thing.
It's so simple.
Dissolve the smell on your mustache.
Yeah. Get the stinky cheese out of your life. You fuck face. Oh, shit.
Oh my God. It's funny.
Yeah, we gotta be
beings,
done.
they still eat stinky cheese.
They
All right.
do.
Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you soon.